Question 1. To illustrate this point, Carlos, a certified mold remediation specialist, is tasked with remediating a mold-infested school basement. After the initial assessment, he creates a containment plan using polyethylene sheeting and negative air machines with HEPA filters. However, during remediation, the general contractor complains that the setup delays HVAC duct access. What should Carlos do to remain compliant and ensure both remediation effectiveness and safety? A. Remove the containment temporarily to allow access, then reinstall it afterward. B. Refuse the contractor's request entirely, citing health hazards. C. Modify the containment plan only after consulting the remediation protocol and documenting the change. D. Allow access under supervision without removing containment barriers. Answer. Correct answer. C. Modify the containment plan only after consulting the remediation protocol and documenting the change. Explanation. Adjusting containment without consultation and documentation violates HVACR guidelines and HRConquer. The remediation plan is a legally binding strategy to control mold spore dispersion according to OSHA 29 CFR 1926 and ETURO 2021. Any DV requires risk reassessment, updated engineering controls, and proper documentation to ensure safety and liability protection. Simply removing barriers compromises environmental containment, risking cross-contamination. Question 2. When faced with complaints of musty odors in multiple rooms of a medical clinic, Tanya, an HVACR technician, suspects the HVAC system. Upon inspection, she observes condensation around poorly insulated ductwork and visible mold growth on the fiberglass duct liner. What aspect of the system design is most likely contributing to the mold proliferation? A. High-efficiency filters trapping excessive moisture. B. Airflow velocity exceeding duct design limits. C. Lack of insulation leading to condensation and high RH levels. D. Improper refrigerant charge in the evaporator coil. Answer. Correct answer. C. Lack of insulation leading to condensation and high RH levels. Explanation. Poorly insulated ducts result in surface temperatures dropping below the dew point, creating condensation. Primary factor in mold growth, ASHRAE Standard 62.1, HVACR guidelines. Is moisture combined with organic duct liners, supports mold colonization. High RH 60% promotes fungal development. Filter efficiency. Airflow velocity are less influential in this context, and refrigerant charge issues affect cooling performance but not directly duct moisture. Question 3. According to recent studies, during a large-scale remediation project in a commercial warehouse, Marcus assigns PPE to workers based on perceived comfort. Some workers are seen wearing dust masks instead of respirators in heavily infested areas. Which OSHA regulation is most relevant here, and what should be done? A. Upgrade PPE based on worker preference and local climate conditions. B. Allow continued use of dust masks if workers report no discomfort. C. Enforce proper respirator use and ensure fit testing under OSHA 29 CFR 1910.134. D. Rotate tasks frequently to reduce overall exposure rather than mandate PPE. Answer. Correct answer. C. Enforce proper respirator use and ensure fit testing under OSHA 29 CFR 1910.134. Explanation. Dust masks do not protect against mold spores or mycotoxins. OSHA 29 CFR 1910.134 requires the use of NIOSH-approved respirators and mandates fit testing, medical evaluations, and a written respiratory protection program. Comfort cannot override safety compliance. Failure to follow these standards may result in worker illness and legal liability. Question 4. Taking into account the persistent mold recurrence in the corner of a residential basement despite multiple cleanings, field technician Leo evaluates structural features. He notes improperly sloped landscaping and foundation wall cracks. Which strategy best addresses the root cause to prevent future mold? A. Install additional dehumidifiers in the basement area. B. Apply antimicrobial paint to affected wall surfaces. C. Improve exterior grading and seal foundation cracks. D. Increase air circulation through duct-mounted fans. Answer. Correct answer. C. Improve exterior grading and seal foundation cracks. Explanation. Mold thrives where moisture intrudes. According to Astomy and the EPA Moisture Control Guide, improper grading channels water toward foundations, while cracks allow seepage. Fixing these structural issues resolves the source, not just the symptom. Dehumidifiers and airflow may reduce symptoms but don't eliminate moisture intrusion pathways. Question 5. By evaluating a multi-story office building, mold assessor Brianna uses thermal imaging to detect potential leaks behind walls. She also takes air samples on multiple floors. The lab results show elevated spore counts in non-affected zones. What should be her next step? A. Recommend immediate remediation across all floors. B. Perform targeted destructive testing to locate hidden mold sources. C. Dismiss results as cross-contamination from foot traffic. D. Resample only in the visibly affected zones for confirmation. Answer. Correct answer. B. Perform targeted destructive testing to locate hidden mold sources. Explanation. Elevated airborne spores outside visible areas suggest concealed mold reservoirs. HRConquer recommends further intrusive investigation, e.g., cutting into drywall when non-invasive methods suggest hidden contamination, ignoring lab data, or delaying action risks spreading spores and misdiagnosis. Question 6. From a practical standpoint, during remediation of an apartment complex, Simon uses HEPA vacuums and air scrubbers throughout. After removing visible mold and debris, he applies a fogging treatment with antimicrobial agents. What critical post-remediation step must follow to ensure proper verification? A. Conduct a post-remediation verification PRV with third-party testing. B. Apply an additional coat of antimicrobial fogging for insurance. C. Leave containment in place for 72 hours post-cleanup. D. Let tenants return immediately after fogging is complete. Answer. Correct answer A. Conduct a post-remediation verification PRV with third-party testing. Explanation. HRConquer and EPA guidelines require third-party PRV to confirm success. It includes visual inspection, moisture measurement, and post-cleaning sampling. Fogging without verification does not ensure remediation effectiveness and may pose respiratory risks. Tenant reoccupation must wait until PRV clearance. Question 7. The fundamental question is, why are high cellulose content materials particularly prone to mold growth when moisture is present? A. They emit heat that supports fungal spore viability. B. Their high reflectivity causes temperature variations. C. They act as organic food sources and retain moisture. D. They inhibit drying due to low air permeability. Answer. Correct answer. C. They act as organic food sources and retain moisture. Explanation. Molds such as Aspergillus and Penicillium thrive on cellulose-rich substrates, e.g. drywall, paper, wood. These materials absorb and retain moisture, creating ideal conditions for hyphal growth. According to the EPA and CDC, nutrient availability and sustained dampness are key growth drivers. Reflectivity and air permeability are secondary. Question 8. When evaluating the merits of restoring a mold-contaminated HVAC system, JNL considers cleaning internal insulation inside ducts. What is the industry-recommended practice regarding mold-infested duct liners? A. Clean and seal with antimicrobial coatings. B. Replace them entirely if cleaning is impractical. C. Remove only sections with visible contamination. D. Leave them if airflow tests show acceptable levels. Answer. Correct answer. B. Replace them entirely if cleaning is impractical. Explanation. According to NACA and the EPA Duct Cleaning Guide, porous duct liners heavily contaminated with mold must be replaced. Cleaning cannot fully remove embedded spores, and sealing alone is unreliable. Leaving contaminated sections compromises HVAC and remediation integrity. Question 9. To better understand the responsibilities of a mold remediation professional, consider Mia, who completes a successful remediation in a retail space. What documentation is most essential for legal compliance and post-remediation assurance? A. Client feedback forms and odor logs. B. Equipment rental receipts and technician schedules. C. Before and after photos, PRV results, and final report. D. Air freshener inventory and HVAC filter logs. Answer. Correct answer. See before and after photos, PRV results, and final report. Explanation. Comprehensive documentation supports regulatory compliance, HVACR, and legal defense. This includes photographic evidence, lab test results, moisture readings, containment logs, and final client report. Personal impressions or unrelated records, e.g., filters, air fresheners, lack evidentiary value. Question 10. As a result of a client's insistence on partial remediation due to budget constraints, Alex, a certified mold specialist, is asked to clean only the visible mold. The hidden contamination in adjacent drywall cavities is not addressed. What is the ethical and professional response? A. Proceed but add a waiver to limit liability. B. Decline the job unless full remediation is approved. C. Complete the partial work and advise follow-up later. D. Recommend using air fresheners to mask remaining odor. Answer. Correct answer. B. Decline the job unless full remediation is approved. Explanation. Performing knowingly incomplete remediation violates the HRConquer Code of Ethics and may expose occupants to ongoing risk. Professionals must prioritize health and integrity even under client pressure. Liability waivers do not absolve ethical duty. EPA and industry standards require full remediation of all contamination. Question 11. In light of recent developments, Jamal inspects a commercial office building after complaints of poor indoor air quality. He finds biofilm and microbial staining on the evaporator coil fins. The building uses a valve system with constant fan operation. What factor most likely contributes to microbial growth in the HVAC unit? A. Use of fiberglass return ductwork. B. Short cycling of the compressor. C. Inadequate coil surface temperature control and prolonged condensation. D. Excessive outside air intake during non-occupied hours. Answer. Correct answer. C. Inadequate coil surface temperature control and prolonged condensation. Explanation. Stagnant moisture on evaporator coils due to continuous fan operation can lead to microbial growth. ANSI 62.1 and EPA guidelines stress the importance of managing condensation, especially on coil surfaces where prolonged wetness creates biofilms. Without proper drying cycles or sufficient airflow velocity, microbial colonization becomes likely. Question 12. The prevailing attitude toward mold inspections in multifamily residences emphasizes non-invasive techniques. When Clarissa uses a moisture meter and thermal imaging on a wall, she finds high moisture but no visible mold. What should be her next best step? A. Proceed to remove drywall without client approval. B. Document findings and recommend limited destructive testing. C. Advise repainting the area with antimicrobial paint. D. Recommend sampling air from the next room. Answer. Correct answer. B. Document findings and recommend limited destructive testing. Explanation. Thermal imaging and moisture meters are preliminary tools, but hidden mold often resides within wall cavities. Per HRConquer, next steps require informed client consent and limited destructive testing if non-invasive results suggest contamination. Sampling alone won't reveal growth source, and covering symptoms violates professional ethics. Question 13. With respect to a remediation project in a high-rise condominium, technician Rafik encounters a challenge. The work area shares a return air plenum with other occupied units. What is the most appropriate engineering control to prevent cross-contamination? A. Increase pressure in the containment zone. B. Shut off HVAC entirely and seal shared ducts. C. Use portable dehumidifiers inside the containment area. D. Increase the CFM of the return air from adjacent units. Answer. Correct answer. B. Shut off HVAC entirely and seal shared ducts. Explanation. Shared air plenums pose a high risk of mold spore migration. HRConquer recommends isolating HVAC systems connected to contaminated zones. Shutting down the system and sealing registers prevent pressure-driven dispersion. Increasing airflow elsewhere can exacerbate spread, and dehumidifiers offer no containment effect. Question 14. The evolution of mold understanding highlights the importance of relative humidity RH in fungal growth. Water H level is generally recognized as the threshold for mold amplification on indoor surfaces. A. 90% or higher for over 24 hours. B. 50% for extended periods. C. 60% or higher sustained for 48 plus hours. D. Any RH exceeding the dew point? Answer. Correct answer. C. 60% or higher sustained for 48 plus hours. Explanation. Most molds begin growing when RH exceeds 60% for a sustained period, CDC, but ASHRI short-term spikes may not support sporulation, but prolonged dampness allows colonization. Understanding this threshold helps in designing humidity control strategies for prevention. Dew point alone is not a reliable standalone indicator. Question 15. From multiple perspectives during remediation of a healthcare facility's HVAC system, Sanjay is asked to clean coils and fan assemblies. What method aligns best with current NACA and HRConquer recommendations? A. Wipe coils with dry cloths and vacuum the fan blades. B. Use compressed air followed by antimicrobial fogging. C. Apply a detergent-based cleaner and rinse with low-pressure water. D. Disassemble the system and replace all mechanical parts. Answer. Correct answer. C. Apply a detergent-based cleaner and rinse with low-pressure water. Explanation. NACA ACA standard and S recommend cleaning HVAC components using detergent or coil-specific cleaners followed by rinsing to remove residues. Fogging without source removal is ineffective. Dry wiping and compressed air do not sufficiently remove biofilms or trap spores, and full mechanical replacement is excessive and unnecessary. Question 16. The contemporary view of HEPA filtration stresses the importance of maintenance during mold remediation in a daycare. Toria notices reduced airflow from an air scrubber. What is the correct action? A. Clean the HEPA filter with compressed air. B. Replace the HEPA filter following the manufacturer's schedule. C. Continue work and monitor pressure drop trends. D. Increase fan speed to compensate for airflow loss. Answer. Correct answer. B. Replace the HEPA filter following the manufacturer's schedule. Explanation. HEPA filters are not reusable or cleanable. Reduced airflow indicates clogging, requiring replacement to maintain efficacy per HRConquer and EPA guidance. Continuing work compromises containment. Increasing fan speed may further damage the filter or motor. Filter maintenance is critical to ensure spore capture. Question 17. Upon closer examination, an insurance auditor reviews mold remediation documents submitted by contractor Neil. The file lacks moisture readings but includes lab results and photos. What critical documentation component is missing? A. Pre-remediation laboratory test interpretation. B. scrubber serial numbers. C. Moisture mapping before and after remediation. D. Contractor's licensing documentation. Answer. Correct answer. C. Moisture mapping before and after remediation. Explanation. Moisture data validates remediation effectiveness. HRConquer and S emphasize baseline moisture levels and confirmation of drying. Lab results alone cannot confirm structural dryness, a key requirement for project clearance. Licensing and equipment data support transparency but are not substitutes for moisture proofing. Question 18. Throughout the course of her career, mold professional Angela faces frequent client pressure to deliver clearance reports quickly. A client insists she finalize documentation before lab results arrive. What should Angela do? A. Issue a conditional report and update it later. B. Delay reporting until all verification data is received. C. Submit the report and note pending results. D. Sign off only on the visible remediation work. Answer. Correct answer. B. Delay reporting until all verification data is received. Explanation. Releasing incomplete reports violates HRConquer Code of Ethics and undermines the post-remediation verification process. Clearance requires objective evidence, lab results, moisture readings, inspections. Conditional or partial reports may expose clients and professionals to liability and invalidate warranties or insurance claims. Question 19. The correlation between confined spaces and mold exposure is critical when working inside a crawl space with limited egress. Josh plans to remediate heavy mold growth. What protocol must he follow? A. Enter with PPE and a backup technician standing by. B. Submit a confined space entry permit and have rescue equipment ready. C. Request client approval for solo entry. D. Ventilate the area briefly before entry, then proceed. Answer. Correct answer. B. Submit a confined space entry permit and have rescue equipment ready. Explanation. OSHA 29 CFR 1910.146 requires a confined space entry program including permits, gas monitoring, rescue readiness, and trained personnel. Mold remediation in such environments may also present bioaerosol risks. Solo entry or temporary ventilation does not satisfy legal or standards. Question 20. To what degree does wall assembly composition influence mold susceptibility in humid climates? Suppose Tara is assessing two walls, one with a vapor barrier on the warm side and one with none. Both experience moisture intrusion. Which wall is more vulnerable to concealed mold growth? A. The wall with no vapor barrier. B. The wall with a warm side vapor barrier. C. Both are equally vulnerable. D. Neither if insulated properly. Answer. Correct answer. B. The wall with a warm side vapor barrier. Explanation. In hot, humid climates, placing the vapor barrier on the warm interior side traps moisture inside the wall cavity, encouraging mold. ASHRAE 160 and Building Science Corp recommend placing vapor barriers in alignment with climatic vapor drive. Misplaced vapor retarders block drying potential and increase mold risk. Question 21. Considering the evidence, Darius is assigned to clean a large commercial HVAC system that has visible microbial growth near the condensate drain pan and downstream ductwork. He notes that the pan is misaligned, causing pooling near the blower motor. What steps should he take as part of remediation? A. Realign or replace the drain pan and disinfect the affected area. B. Rinse the area with water and install overlight. C. Increase fan speed to promote drying in future operations. D. Apply antimicrobial treatment and leave the drain pan untouched. Answer. Correct answer. A. Realign or replace the drain pan and disinfect the affected area. Explanation. Condensate pan failures a known contributor to HVAC-related mold growth. ASHRAE Standard 62.1. The EPA HVAC Mold Guide. Pooling water near electrical components is both a microbial and electrical hazard. ANSI KES requires that contributing causes be corrected. This includes drain pan alignment and biocide or cleaning of nearby components. Question 22. Through careful analysis of equipment choices during remediation of a school library, Jenny decides between using negative air machines or air scrubbers. The containment is in place and workers are cleaning mold from wooden bookcases. What is the correct setup for maintaining proper airflow? A. Operate air scrubbers with HEPA filters outside the containment. B. Use negative air machines to exhaust air outside the containment zone. C. Keep all machines off during manual cleaning to avoid turbulence. D. Use positive air pressure to protect surrounding areas. Answer. Correct answer. B. Use negative air machines to exhaust air outside the containment zone. Explanation. Negative pressure containment is essential to prevent spores from escaping during mold removal. ICRESA EPA guidelines. Negative air machines draw contaminated air out of the work zone through HEPA filters, exhausting it safely. Air scrubbers are used inside the containment but don't provide directional airflow control. Positive pressure is never acceptable in mold remediation. Question 23. The impact of microbial growth on occupant health varies by species. In a residential duplex, lab reports show elevated Stachybotrys chartarum in the basement drywall. What risk does this species most significantly present? A. Long-term bacterial infection risk. B. Increased structural fire hazards. C. Potential production of mycotoxins affecting respiratory health. D. Disruption of air conditioning refrigerant cycles. Answer. Correct answer. C. Potential production of mycotoxins affecting respiratory health. Explanation. Stachybotrys chartarum, often called black mold, is known to produce trichothiocin mycotoxins. These compounds can cause respiratory symptoms, especially in immunocompromised individuals, infants, or elderly occupants. WHO Guidelines on Indoor Air Quality 2009. It does not cause bacterial infections or HVAC system malfunction directly. Question 24. Upon closer examination, Amira performs a site assessment using a thermal camera and finds cold spots in wall corners of a hospital mechanical room. Moisture meter readings confirm elevated moisture What should she conclude? A. Cold spots are unrelated to mold potential and need no follow-up. B. These are likely thermal bridging areas where condensation occurs. C. The thermal camera is malfunctioning and should be recalibrated. D. The issue is likely poor insulation and requires HVAC redesign. Answer. Correct answer. B. These are likely thermal bridging areas where condensation occurs. Explanation. Thermal bridging occurs when conductive materials, e.g. steel studs, transfer exterior cold inward, causing localized condensation and raising mold risk. Thermal imaging helps identify these weak points. According to ASTME and EPA moisture guidance, identifying and correcting thermal bridging is essential in preventing mold development. Question 25. In a modern context of occupational safety, Stan observes a remediation worker improperly removing PPE in the containment exit area. The worker removes gloves first, then respirator, followed by suit. What corrections should be made? A. Change the sequence to remove respirator first, then gloves. B. Implement a clean room exit procedure with supervisor oversight. C. Allow workers to decide their own doffing sequence based on comfort. D. Require glove reuse to minimize material waste. Answer. Correct answer. B. Implement a clean room exit procedure with supervisor oversight. Explanation. OSHA 29, CFR 1910.134 and HRConquer require a formal decontamination protocol to prevent cross-contamination. Improper doffing can expose workers and spread spores. A clean room or transition zone with trained oversight ensures safe removal order, typically gloves, suit, respirator. PPE use is prohibited in most mold jobs. Question 26. In what ways can interior air pressure affect mold growth within wall assemblies of tightly sealed buildings? A. Positive pressure forces are outdoor pollutants indoors. B. Negative pressure draws moist outside air through walls, raising RH. C. Balanced pressure reduces structural integrity and causes collapse. D. Interior pressure has no influence on microbial colonization. Answer. Correct answer. B. Negative pressure draws moist outside air through walls, raising RH. Explanation. Negative indoor air pressure can draw warm, moist outdoor air through wall cavities. When this air cools, it condenses inside walls, feeding mold growth. ASHRAE Fundamentals and Building Science Corporation emphasize managing pressure differentials to control moisture intrusion. Positive pressure is often used as a strategy in moisture-prone climates. Question 27. The most significant aspect of a multi-phase mold remediation project in an old theatre involves sequencing of remediation areas. James is leading the job and must avoid cross-contamination. What is the best strategy? A. Begin in the area with the highest visible mold first. B. Start with heavily contaminated zones to remove the largest risk. C. Proceed from cleanest to dirtiest zones using separate equipment per area. D. Work on all areas simultaneously to minimize time on site. Answer. Correct answer. C. Proceed from cleanest to dirtiest zones using separate equipment per area. Explanation. Remediation should begin in the cleanest areas to prevent cross-contamination from heavily affected zones. HRConquer recommends this sequencing to limit spore spread. Tools and equipment must be isolated per zone or thoroughly decontaminated. Simultaneous work or starting with dirty zones risks contaminating the rest of the building. Question 20. A detailed analysis of the final report submitted by mold contractor Leela reveals missing photographic documentation of containment setup. What potential issue can this cause? A. The client may file a lawsuit for emotional distress. B. The remediation may be deemed incomplete by insurance. C. Workers may claim unauthorized overtime. D. Equipment usage may appear exaggerated. Answer. Correct answer. B. The remediation may be deemed incomplete by insurance. Explanation. Containment documentation is critical for verifying that appropriate engineering controls were implemented. According to HRConquer and legal best practices, missing visuals may result in denied insurance claims or disputes about project compliance. Photos help establish timeline, scope, and adherence to protocol. Question 29. Examining the consequences of underreporting minor mold during an assessment, Ravi submits the report that omits surface mold on windowsills too, To avoid alarming the client, what ethical guideline has Ravi violated? A. Legal confidentiality under HIPAA. B. Duty to disclose all observations accurately and objectively. C. Chain of custody rules for sample labeling. D. Neutrality during client billing negotiations. Answer. Correct answer. B. Duty to disclose all observations accurately and objectively. Explanation. Ethical practice in mold remediation requires full transparency. HRConquer and professional codes of conduct mandate that inspectors report all visible mold, regardless of perceived severity. Failure to do so can lead to liability, health consequences, and professional sanctions. HIPAA is unrelated to environmental disclosure. Question 30. From a historical standpoint, why are older HVAC systems particularly prone to mold contamination? A. They were typically installed with oversized ductwork promoting airflow. B. They lack modern air sealing and insulation standards. C. They use copper coils, which encourage mold biofilm growth. D. They incorporate filters that are too fine and clog easily. Answer. Correct answer. B. They lack modern air sealing and insulation standards. Explanation. Older systems often lack proper air sealing, insulation, and drainage design. This leads to condensation, thermal bridging, and airflow irregularities, factors that contribute to microbial growth. EPA HVAC Guide ASHRAE 62.1. Copper itself has antimicrobial properties, and oversized ductwork typically reduces, not increases, mold risk. Lower friction loss.